Hello YouTube, it's Mark here, Dezaras Prime, and I'm back with another episode of Chapter 13, Episode 3, which isn't talking about Scorn. Probably thinking it would, given the last two episodes have talked about Moss and Dezaras, but I've decided not to do the Scorn spotlight or the Little D spotlights just yet, because for the simple fact they haven't featured enough for me to do a detailed analysis of their characters just yet. I mean, case in point, Little D's only been in 3 episodes, and pretty much everything that's needed to know at this point is known. He's Dezaras' long-lost son. He's reckless and impulsive, just like his dad. He needs to learn about responsibility and stuff. Conversely, Scorn, despite having featured in 6 out of 7 episodes, didn't really feature much in 4, 5, or 6. He only really had 2, 3, and 7 to have any kind of prominent role, and I don't feel that's enough to base an analysis video on, or a spotlight video on. But rest assured, when we come back for Chapter 13 in the off season, those two, Scorn and Little D, will be the first characters that I discuss in the spotlight episode then. But for now, we're going to get into talk about each individual episode. And again, this will be weekly. This week I'll deal with Chapter 1, The Investigator. Next week I'll deal with Chapter 2. What did I call Chapter 2? Spider Took My Money. Sorry. So yeah, let's get into it with The Investigator. The shortest episode of the season thus far. It probably will be out of the whole season anyway, because I don't do short episodes or short videos very well. Anybody that's seen my content will know that. Yes, there are a few 10-minute videos on there, but for the most part, they're long. Some of them are over 40 minutes, some of them are 60. Even back when I had the 10-minute time limit on YouTube and the 15-minute time limit, I still found myself breaking those episodes down into 2-parters, just because I couldn't compress everything. There was too much in my head that I wrote down, and I feel like I do better with long stories. And I feel my stories are good enough that someone can sit through them, no matter how long they are. Don't expect any 3-hour Batman v Superman epics, though. But yeah, The Investigator. It's short because it's mainly just an establishing piece, and also because I didn't expect any of the other episodes to be so long. But this basically just establishes, it sets the scene, sets the tone. It sets the difference in tone between Moss and Dezaras and the Chapter 13 crew. We see Moss, and we get the introduction to San Andreas and Roy Moss as a character, and we've got the jazz cover of Baker Street and that stuff. We see him at home, we see him walking the streets, we see him doing investigative work as best as I can on the PS4 version, because I'll get into that in a bit. I'm just talking about the episode in general at the minute, and then we'll get more into the inner workings and behind the scenes machinations and stuff like that. And it really shows off Moss's curiosity, and it also shows off his intuition as well, because when he's watching the 2 When Bastards Are Twats clips, which again we'll get back to When Bastards Are Twats in just a little while, he notices that the guy that robs the convenience store and the guy at the construction site gang attack are the same person. He notices it in the eyes. It shows Moss's intuitiveness, his attention to detail, that he can look at 2 ostensibly different men, because let's face it, they don't look like the same person. Because the second one, the construction site, you see it's grainy by design, security footage. The store robbery, he just runs past really quickly, yet Moss is able to pick those kinds of things up and observe those little details that the untrained eye might not. Because there are moments where Moss has his comedic moments, like when he falls off a cliff in Chapter 2, or when he goes to the titty bar because he's lonely and stuff. But I do want to drive home the fact that Moss is very good at what he does, and he is low-key by choice. Because if he were to take all the big cases and make a name for himself, investigating Chapter 13 would be a lot harder. So yeah, he notices those things on When Bastards Are Twats, and he goes and speaks to the store clerk, and we learn that Dezaras paid him back eventually, because Dezaras is a man of honor, and he's doing what he has to. That's kind of the way I've got the San Andreas state in this series. It's a dead state. There's no one coming in from the outside. There's no outside governing forces. The LSPD are free to do whatever the fuck they want to people. Civilians be damned. As are the FIB and the IAA. It's a lost cause in terms of states and counties and stuff like that. And you do what you have to do to survive. You can't being a nice person and trying to play a law-abiding citizen isn't going to get you very far in a place like that. And that's one of the things you'll see going forward in other episodes, especially the second half of the season, when we really start to see the shit hit the fan. We also learn in this episode that Dezaras is dead. He died a year ago in a sticky bomb incident, which is all we're told so far. I do have plans for that. That is, it's going to be quite the spectacle, I hope. And I hope it lives up to that hype. But yeah, so the gist of the episode, Moss is investigating Chapter 13 for unknown reasons, only to me. And Dezaras is dead, which I feel if Dezaras was still alive and the club... Oh, fucking hell, I can't talk. If the club was still active and Dezaras was still alive... I like how I can say Dezaras, but I can't say club. If the club was still active and Dezaras was still alive, I'm saying that for the last time now, Moss probably won't be investigating him, because there'd be too much risk. But with the club underground, Dezaras dead, then he has a bit more of a safety net, so to speak. Okay, so let's talk about the limitations of the PS4. Now, I use Rockstar Editor, the in-house capturing and editing software for most of my work. It is a lot of fun. I record footage and I have a lot of excess footage on the cutting room floor, so to speak. I like the editing. It's a lot less cumbersome than, say, editing a Dark Savior episode. If I want to show, for example, Dezaras shooting fire out of his hands, and I want to show it the camera facing him, his front, then I have to position the camera and do it that way. Sometimes I won't even be an enemy there. I'll just have to navigate the camera in a clear environment and just do that shot and hope it mixes in well. With this, I don't have to worry about that. I can just carry on, play the game as normal, and then change the camera angles and all that in post. One exception is the driving. I have to pull over at times. You'll probably see in some episodes where you'll see them lean towards the curb a bit and then just carry on as if nothing happened. That's me pulling over to let the camera catch up, because when you're driving, you've got to stop, otherwise it won't save properly. Having said that, there are still some limitations. I've seen some people play around with GTA Online on the PC. Sonny Evans, Pyrealm Gaming. They are two that I enjoy watching. And you can do some really fucking... It's so much more advanced on the PC. I'll never move 13 to the PC because it'd mean buying decent PCs and that can handle it, and everybody involved in the series would need a PC. So we're sticking with the PS4. Like to think I'm pretty good at working with what I've got, and it still does enough for me. It's enough for me to tell the story I need to, but in terms of Moss's investigation, this episode in particular is just a load of walking around and driving around and simulating questioning people of interest. Case in point, the store clerk. But it was nice to mess around with the camera angles and stuff, like every now and then you'd see it from a CCTV perspective. The gas station where the camera pans around. Little things like that I like to play around with. It's very easy to get carried away making this series. And yeah, the camera work and the Rockstar Editor on the PS4 it's still great. You can still do a lot with it. Even Director mode and the Creator mode, they offer a lot of options as well that I hope to mix in over time. But yeah, there are limitations. You can't really have Moss on his knees examining a crime scene, for example. You can't have him looking up shit on his laptop. You can have him at a desk computer in something like a CEO office, but if you wanted to use his laptop at home, you can't show him using it. All you can do is he'll just stand there. Even if you have an outsider recording in there with him, it'd just be stood there. So yeah, it is. But you can sit down. Take that, DCUO. It's limitations, but it still does what I need it to, and it's a good tool to use, and it's helped make this series something that I'm very proud of. The intro sequence isn't done with Rockstar Editor. I did the intro sequence before I found out about that. That was tricky. Dezaras on his bike knocking a car out of the way. That was a bit of a task to put together. I'm really looking forward to doing an intro sequence for Season 2 using Rockstar Editor, because it'll be magnificent. I can't wait to do it. When bastards are twats. This was an idea that I had before I even created the Chapter 13 Club, back when I was in the old crew, and me and Benji were talking about ways to do GTA type stuff for YouTube, and he suggested a sketch show, and that was where When Bastards Are Twats came along. I had the idea for this, and it was going to be like one of those wildest police chases / kids say the funniest things, or fucking animals do them, or fucking something like that. That was my idea for When Bastards Are Twats, and I had Jeremy Clarkson, who used to do Top Gear, in mind for the voice, and I tried to do it as best I can. Don't ever pull it off, but you know the When Bastards announcer when you hear it. So that was where that idea came from. And currently, this won't remain for the whole season, because there are moments where it doesn't fit, but When Bastards seems to be running every other episode. You've got it in 1, 3, 5, 7. I don't believe I've got When Bastards again until Chapter 13, because 9 and 11, I can't fit it in, especially 11. Because I'm not just going to shoehorn a When Bastards clip in just for the sake of it. And besides, Dezaras has been on When Bastards Are Twats at this point, twice in Chapter 1, Chapter 3, Chapter 7? He's been in it 4 times. Yeah, 4 times he's been on When Bastards Are Twats. I did have the idea of doing like a little outreach to the GTA community and seeing if anybody would like to be a bastard being a twat and feature on When Bastards Are Twats, and just a little clip every now and then. That's up to you. Let me know if you want to do it. But yeah, When Bastards Are Twats was going to be like one of these little sketches that I did. Along with other things, like I had this parody of LA Inc. called Twats with Tats, or Tats on Twats, something like that. I'm very British, so I have a lot of twats stuff going around, as well as like we was thinking about a Top Gear type thing and stuff like that. But so far, the only thing that's really survived those initial suggestions is When Bastards Are Twats, and it's gone down pretty well. People seem to like that. It is a fun thing to do, but like I said, I'm not going to force it into scenarios where it isn't warranted. Okay, so let's move on and talk about music now. Now, we'll start with the intro music for a start. Do I Want to Know by the Arctic Monkeys. I like that song, and I kind of feel like it fits. It's got like a bit of an outlaw vibe to it, and I used just the instrumental for the title sequence, but I have used the version with lyrics in Chapter 7. It's a case, me and Wolf did debate whether, when it comes to Season 2, whether we would use the instrumental still or use the with lyrics version. Eventually we settled on keeping with the instrumental for the title sequence, because it's one of those funny little things about that song that the Arctic Monkeys are a British group, and they sound very British when they sing, especially in Do I Want to Know. And I kind of feel like I don't want to say this in a bad way, that there's a bit of a clash with the way the song is structured. If you listen to just the instrumental, it sounds a little bit outlaw western biker type kind of thing. Then you got English guys singing in English voices and stuff. I don't want to say there's a bit of a clash there in a good way. The song still works. The song's still a great song, but I kind of feel like, and yes, the majority of chapter 13 is British, so it could work, but I think the main problem would be finding a suitable cut of the song. It's easier with an instrumental, but when it's got words on it, you've got to find where the song, a good place to cut the music there, and it would be a bit too tricky. But for that one scene in chapter 7, it was nice to just use the version with lyrics just to break it up, because throughout the course of the season you do hear that Do I Want to Know instrumental a lot when they're on the road. It's kind of like their riding theme as well as the show theme, and so we'll be sticking with that. I had considered a couple of other songs for intro songs, but yeah, we're sticking with Do I Want to Know. The jazz music that Roy Moss, it's because I got given a script where I had to record some lines for Moss and it kept getting called Ross. The jazz music that Roy uses, one of them is a jazz cover of Baker Street, which is very, what's the word, somber in a way. Because, I mean, the whole Baker Street song in and of itself is a very somber affair. And this song, the jazz cover that I use, just takes it to that next level because it makes it more dour and depressing. And I think in the first episode, I used it whenever I felt like a change of music was needed. But I think recently I've taken to the fact of, from chapter 4 onwards, using the Baker Street cover for the more somber moments and using the Whose Line Narrate music for the more upbeat stuff, which is that other piece of music that Roy uses, is the narrate theme from Whose Line Is It Anyway, which I love that, and it just kind of captures that tone perfectly, the film noir mood, but in a more upbeat manner. Like, I know I'm supposed to be talking about chapter 1 here, but I feel like I need to, when we're talking about the music, go into, for example, chapter 4. If I remember correctly, narrate isn't used at all in chapter 4. It's just the Baker Street cover for Moss's scenes. Because that, again, it goes into that somber tone. And Dizzy is Dead, chapter 4, is a very angry, very aggressive, very tonally dark episode, and I didn't feel like using narrate would fit the tone of that story, so I went with the Baker Street stuff. Des goes out killing it, everybody, and on these rampages and gang attacks, and then Moss is like thinking about it and looking into the aftermaths of that, and the tone has to be a bit more somber, I feel. Consequently, chapter 7, chapter 6, chapter 5, he uses a lot more of the narrate because things start to pick up tonally there as well. So that was one of the things I just wanted to highlight there because we're talking about music. When Bastard the Twats has Uprising by Muse, because I do like Muse, some of their stuff. Not all of it, but I like some of it. And I figured Uprising was a decent enough theme song to use for When Bastard the Twat, considering When Bastard the Twat is a bit of a chaotic show and a bit of a what's the word, aggressive riot type scenario kind of thing where you've got people running into gunfights and all that shit. I feel like it fits. Knights of Sidonia was what I used during the escape from the store robbery, and back when I was thinking about this series in my head, I had Knights of Sidonia in mind for another key scene that comes later in the season. And I used Knights of Sidonia at the store robbery just to kind of set the tone. So that store robbery would be kind of a bookend in a way, and a nice little throw callback Problem is, I don't know if I'm going to use Knights of Sidonia for the scene I intended now. I honestly don't know. I feel like I've heard better music that would be more suitable for that scene. So that's still something that's a bit up in the air when it comes to that. But yeah, Knights of Sidonia by Muse was the song I used for the Escape from the Store robbery. Uprising, also by Muse, was used for When Bastards Are Twats. I kind of feel like I've covered everything I can in this episode. It was a short episode, and so obviously this is going to be a short video. I think this video actually runs longer than the actual episode, but yeah, there's not really a lot more to go into in terms of, off the top of my head anyway. I might revisit this again at some point. Maybe do like a little one at the end where I'll just collate a load of other stuff that I neglected to mention at the time of recording. But yeah, I can't really talk. It's like I went off into a topic about chapter 4 and 5 in terms of music, and that stuff should have really been reserved for those episode discussions, but I felt like I needed to mention it in terms of the music. Maybe I should have done a fucking episode for music on its own. Maybe I still will. I don't know. But for the time being, I'm going to end it there, and we'll be back with chapter 2, Spider Took My Money. Thank you very much for watching. You shall see me next time.